Well, this is a great panel because, like many of us in life, these panelists started off working in places where they felt like, is this it? Is this how it's all going to happen? And they took those lessons and they realized this isn't it. And they went out and changed the world. So you're going to hear from two panelists to talk about one of the most important things that you can do to change the world. You got to start with some resources, and we're going to be talking about fundraising. So our two guests are Nicole Pfeiffer-Hicks. Nicole got out of Indiana University, had a really cool job in sports marketing, and she was miserable. It was not the right job for her. And she moved to the American Cancer Society, a job where at least you wake up every day knowing you're going to save some lives. So that helps even on the bad days. And now she's been there for 15 years, saving thousands, if not millions of lives. And the way she's doing it is she's really leading the way and teaching them how to harness young people for fundraising. She's using technology to show them that there is a better way. So she's the managing director for Relay for Life Student, and she's also the director of their millennial strategy. Plus, she leads the American Cancer Society's National Youth Partner Program, which really creates opportunities for young leaders to get involved with Cancer Society in so many different ways. So she's going to be talking to you about lessons learned and best practices. And we also have Justin Wheeler, who was in fundraising, doing well, learning a lot, but he just felt like there were better ways to raise money. And he created his own company, founder and CEO of Fundraise, where he used better technology, better ideas, better ways to do it, and pretty quickly out of the gate landed a big recognizable name. You all know Comedy Relief and the Red Nose campaign. Well, guess what? Fundraise became their vehicle for raising their money at a time when Fundraise was still getting off the ground. Good news is nothing crashed. It all worked. It was a pivotal moment for the company, and it was a pivotal moment for raising money for a good cause. So these are two people who don't just talk the talk, they walk the walk. They really know what they're talking about, and they're going to share what they've learned with you and how you all can use those best practices. So please welcome Justin Wheeler and Nicole Pfeiffer-Hicks. So Justin, let me start with you because you were in a job where you felt like you were learning a lot, but you got antsy. Old fogies like me, we think it's a little dangerous to go start something on your own. Sometimes there's safety in letting somebody else worry about paying the bills at the end of the day. But you were determined. You raised the venture capital by going around yourself. It wasn't like you were bankrolled by any one person who said, do this and I guarantee you the funds. What gave you the courage to believe?
So prior to starting Fundraise, I spent 10 years in the nonprofit space with two organizations, Invisible Children and Liberty North Korea. And really it was during that time that I learned the importance of building the plane while you're flying. And that gave me the courage really to take on this new venture.
Now, a lot of people say, no, you're building the plane while you're flying. That's a bad idea. And you're saying that works.
Yeah, I mean, I think that everyone has different experiences, and there's no one right way to start a company or organization. We can learn from each other's experiences and mistakes, but at the end of the day, if you believe in something, if you can't get, and really this is what happened with me with Fundraise, I couldn't get it out of my head, and it wasn't just, I wasn't just a single dude. I had 4 kids and a wife. And so starting a company.
Wow, you buried your lead. I did not find that out in the green room.
Yeah.
Because here I'm thinking like, oh, sure, you can afford to do that, but what about someone with a wife and 4 kids?
There's a lot at stake. But main point is when you believe in something enough and you're passionate about it, you can do it. You can find the resources, you can find the know-how, and that's what led me to start Fundraise.
So you have some primers for how they can do it, and we're going to talk about that. But Nicole, I have to ask you, you went from a job that was not fulfilling, but you went to a really big organization, and you went to the kind of big organization that values years of experience and a few gray hairs, and you went in young, and yet you've made your career out of teaching a big, successful organization how to be better by listening to young people like you. Did you go in with that idea that you were going to do that, or did they develop trust and give you that opportunity?
That's a great question. No, I didn't know this was what I wanted to do. And I've started in the field. I worked with volunteers day to day and kind of found some nice career pathing throughout the organization. And I think that that's one thing, you know, a larger organization can potentially offer, is that ability to try different things and see what fits. And as I sort of progressed through my career, I was able to sort of land in a place where I found this passion for working with students. And I was lucky that the person that led our team really believed in the power of students, that you know, you don't have to be solid in your career to make a difference or make an impact. And we've really tried to grow that as we've built our students.
And been incredibly successful. So since we like to keep your attention by moving through this quickly, now we're going to kind of go to the lightning round, because we're going to go through the 5 ways that you've developed as the pivot points. And Nicole, you're going to talk about them as well. So I'm going to give you each 30 seconds on each one, because there's 5 of them. You say, Justin, the key is urgency, emotion, trust, goals, and momentum. So start with urgency and give us your 30-second pitch on how to get that.
Sure. So we're competing for people's attention when we're fundraising, whether it's high net worth donors or, you know, high school kids. And if what we're raising for has no urgency, it's going to be hard to actually accomplish what you're trying to. And so whether you're building a campaign, whether you're raising money for a capital campaign or grassroots campaign, your pitch has to have an element of urgency. There has to be a time factor that's embedded into it, and that's key in any campaign, in any fundraising activity.
Okay, so Nicole, how do you do that when cancer has been around forever and young people want to see results, and you can't promise them a cure tomorrow if they relay for life?
Right. Well, you have to create an experience that fulfills that sense of urgency. So it might not happen now, but here's what you can do now and what it means now. So if you can create a tangible connection, that goes a long way.
And make the event the urgency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the funds raised, it's like no other person should die of cancer.
Right.
Right. And there is that urgency right then and there that you can use.
See the synergy we have here? I like our panel. Emotion.
It's kind of piggybacks right off of urgency, right? I mean, if you're raising money for something and you yourself can't even connect with it, when I was at Liberty in North Korea, we would raise funds to rescue refugees, and everyone can connect to that. Maybe you have a sister, a brother, a family member. What would it be like if they weren't living the life that you are able to live here, and instead they're being subject to oppression and sex trafficking? And so being able to convey emotion through your narrative is extremely important.
Nicole, I think it's hard for you. I have friends who are cancer so near and dear to them that it's almost too emotional. How do you connect with emotion?
Well, I think that that we try to use emotion as a vehicle, not just for fundraising, but for volunteer engagement overall, right? And I would guess that if we ask everyone in this room to stand up if you know someone touched by cancer, almost every person in this room would stand up. And that's pretty powerful. So we, you know, again, that emotion piece, like putting a face, putting a name, helps create that tangible connection.
Now 3, I think this is probably one of the most important, so I'm going to let this stand alone. We're going to do goals and momentum together because that clock is ticking. But trust. Mm-hmm. Justin, how does a young, new organization say, trust me, Comedy Relief, we know what we're doing and we can do this? Yeah,
I mean, I think more important than that is when you're raising donor dollars, right? When you're raising funds for a project, you have to be able to prove what you're doing, right? You have to be able to show proof that, hey, what we said we're doing with your money, we've done it, or we're gonna do it. Mm-hmm. And there are organizations that have just really great metrics that they use to report back to donors, and that builds momentum, because the more you can call back to your donor and say, hey, we've accomplished X, Y, and Z. This is how we've done it. This is the GPS coordinate, or this is the life that was saved. There's nothing better than that.
Yeah. So I'm going to skip ahead, Nicole, because trust, I think I would give you guys an A+ on trust as a nonprofit organization. But goals and momentum, how do you keep that moving forward when the job is so huge?
Right. So I think some of it goes back to what Justin was just talking about in terms of showing the work. So I think those check-ins, those touch points where you can say, like, we're getting there. You know, here are the things that your dollar has done. And to keep moving forward, you have to continually engage people, and you have to make them feel like they're a part of what you do. And I think a lot of organizations do this really well, is if you want to build not just fundraisers, but build people that are truly engaged in your work, you have to make them a part of your work. And that includes letting them have a voice in how things work. And that can help build on that momentum.
I think we actually do. I was looking at the time and it was showing down to 0, but am I right that we get that extra time that we're seeing down? So I think we get to go ahead. So Justin, talk about goals and momentum.
So on goals, this is absolutely critical for any campaign, especially online fundraising, which is more of my expertise. If you don't put out a goal of what you're trying to accomplish from a financial perspective, right? It's $100,000. You'll likely raise significantly less. Right? And so make sure as you're crafting the campaign, as you're preparing a pitch for maybe a high net worth donor, that there's a specific dollar goal in mind. And typically, like, I always go 3 times more than what I think we can actually do, because I think that then plays into momentum, right? If you do see a lot of engagement and you do hit the goal, or you're maybe 50% behind the goal, you can use some urgency, you can use time to try to get there. And so there's so much more in momentum that I wish we had time to talk about, which is really the strategy behind any great campaign. But I'll leave it there.
I think we do have a little bit of time to do that. So but first I want to turn to Nicole, because you talked too about the importance of using volunteers, that volunteers can actually help build some of this momentum. I think fundraising is the hardest job in any organization. I'd like to think I'm fairly successful at what I've done over the years, but I'm a lousy fundraiser. So you say both use volunteers and peer-to-peer, they're both important. Mm-hmm. Tell us the keys to that success. So, an organization like us, we're not built on large gifts. I mean, we get large gifts, but the bulk of our money is raised through $10 and $20 donations. And that is, you talking to your friend, asking for $20, $25, whatever it is. The Bernie Sanders campaign.
Absolutely. And I think that creates that emotional connection to the cause. And also sometimes it's even more powerful because someone might not have a direct affiliation with your organization, but you're my friend and it's important to you, so I will support you in your efforts. And so we work with our volunteers to talk about how they can leverage those relationships to increase their fundraising and build engagement.
You bring in technology to always make it a better way. Can you share with us some of the ways that your generation is helping the executives? There's always reverse mentoring. What are you teaching them about better ways to fundraise through technology?
Well, I think that just knowing that that's a new opportunity or a different opportunity, and not everyone communicates the same way.
You don't expect people in your age group to write a check and send it by mail.
Right, exactly, exactly. I mean, I'm making a Venmo payment to wherever. So one of the things that our team has really been focused on in our organization is how do we help provide the tools that we know people use for fundraising.
Justin, I know my sister's executive at the Red Cross, and they worked with, she was young at the time, Katie Jacobs-Stanton. She had been at Google. She went on to be an executive at Twitter, but creating #Haiti at the State Department revolutionized how the Red Cross was able to get a whole new pool of funding for donations from young donors who they had never had before. What are some of the things that are changing in terms of donations because of technology and people wanting to use their phones rather than even a laptop?
Right, no, that's a great question. It's kind of piggybacking off what Nicole mentioned. It's the Seth Godin effect, right, in marketing. Like brands who do well, it's because they have a strong word of mouth marketing strategy. And what you see in online fundraising, I mean, you see, just some high level facts. $30 billion this year will be given online. And that demographic of donors is reachable through the supporters that exist in your database, right? And we know millennials in the next few years will be making up about $100 billion of annual giving. And we know the preferred method that millennials like to give. And so I think we've got to look at this changing landscape, and we've got to modernize our fundraising stack, whether you're a Fortune 500 nonprofit or a small mom and pop shop. It's really going to be, it's changing the landscape of traditional fundraising as we know it. And so modernizing your stack is incredibly important.
So here's a really good question from the audience. Emotion versus metrics and numbers. Which works better in your experience? Is it better to appeal strictly to the emotions or to get these big data metrics that they can show? You build the trust. That's kind of choosing between your 5.
I think it's a happy medium, but I think big numbers are not compelling for raising money.
Yeah.
It's hard for us to understand, hey, your $10 is going to impact 10,000 people in Haiti, but hey, your $10 is going to provide lunch for this girl in Haiti. That's going to be far more effective than, and easier for us to understand. We don't have the emotional bank to understand what 10,000 people look like, how $10 can affect it. So I would say smaller numbers, more in emotion.
Agree. I completely agree. I've read once that metrics and data just tell you what's in your rearview mirror, and it doesn't tell you what the road ahead lies. And I think that emotion helps provide what's out your windshield.
That's a good point. And here's a good question, Justin, more for you, because you all don't just count on small grants and just small donations, but you do, so that. But when most nonprofits are counting on grants and donations for sustainability, how do you make a 5-year plan when you're just trying to keep the doors open?
I think it's more sustainable to have a diverse donor demographic that's giving 10, 15, 20, because if you see a 5% drop in that donor demographic, it's not going to be as big of a drop as your $2 million foundation that gives. And we know foundations give on a 2 to 3 year basis, and after that, you're pretty much done. And so I would say that building up your mid-level donor base, individuals who give annually maybe $100 a year, is probably the best road for sustainability.
And the true lightning round, last question, how do you convince an organization to be open to new technology, but give it, what's the one-word answer to how you get them to be open to new technology? Fearless? Do you argue
I have 2
or do
words.
you
Show
convince? Good. Argue or convince? Show it's a good one.
The one thing I would say is if you're not convinced, hire someone who understands technology, hire a millennial, and you will be very successful in raising funds online.
Thank you all very much. Good luck, you all. Raising money is going to be the most important thing you can do.
Thank you.
Thanks.